All right, welcome everybody, and thanks for joining us here on today's webinar for Converting Your Calls. My name is Neal, and I'm the Director of our sales team and client experience, and I'm joined by my colleague.
Yeah, it's Taylor Reynolds here, or Big T, as a lot of you know me, Senior Account Manager here at RingPartner, and Chris, really looking forward to this webinar, and you know what, thanks to Taryn for helping us out and get this set up. We apologize, we're a couple minutes late, but Taryn, our webinar guy, made this all happen, so looking good.
Yeah, big shout out there, and really glad that we've got such a great turnout today of people who have decided to attend, because we get a ton of questions about conversions, and I think it's obviously one of the most important pieces to running a successful pay-per-call campaign. So we're happy to be able to help give you some guidance and help you out, and I think one of the messages probably to you, and you can talk to this as well, that we're going to be talking about over and over again is that this is a tier 1 help forum. So think of it in the sense that this is sort of your starting point. We're going to go over some of the basics. We're going to point you to some tools that will be useful, but really where you're going to get the value is by speaking with the team, having those one-on-one opportunities to chat. We are going to be posting a link within this presentation as well where you can actually book a one-on-one campaign audit, so we can hopefully help you with converting your calls, figure out where there might be problems, where there may be opportunities, and I can't stress enough, take advantage of that.
Absolutely.
Cool. So the agenda for the day, we're going to run through a few different topics, how to audit your campaigns, campaign fundamentals. We're going to chat a little bit about creatives because that's a really big piece as well to the pie here.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we're going to finish off with traffic sources, analyzing your call reports, which is a really big piece, and then, of course, testing and optimizing your campaigns, and then we'll wrap it up with a Q&A.
So there is that opportunity, and again, another great opportunity for you guys to get some questions in. Please do, if you have any questions, submit them, talk to us, chat. We want to hear your feedback. We really do. It helps us answer any questions live here, but if those questions can't get answered, if we can't get to all of them, please do set up that one-on-one campaign audit. Reach out to the partner success team. We've got plenty of people that are more than happy to help you, and it helps so much when we can actually look at your campaign specifically. One of the things that you're going to notice is we have publishers who are running traffic from paid search to Facebook to display, you name it, television, radio. It really does cover the full spectrum, so it can be very difficult to hone in one webinar on all of those promo methods and what's going to work for you. Whereas when we're looking at your campaign specifically, when we can look at the calls you've generated, the creatives you've provided, that's where you're going to get that big value push. So as we mentioned, Chris Neal on there on the right, Taylor, the better looking one here on the left. I'll give you that one. Take it. And we're really excited. Let's kick things off by just auditing your campaigns. The first step, we chat about this a lot, is knowing what type of campaigns you're running. Understand that we have different campaigns, we have different verticals, and based on those, we also have very different setups. And the only way you're going to get to know that is by talking to the team, because different campaigns and different verticals can have different buyers in the back ends, they can have different structures. There's a whole team in-house here, which is our ad ops team, that actually optimizes the way these campaigns are built. So for you to know how a campaign structure looks on the back end is really going to help the way for you to understand how to better optimize that campaign. And I'm kind of talking the difference between our traditional, call center agent type campaigns versus a lot of the spaces we work into with the local side of businesses.
Absolutely, Chris. Yeah, the local game as opposed to that, one buyer, one big call center national, it definitely is a different beast. Tons of moving pieces in the back, and like Chris was mentioning, and this is just an opportunity for us to educate you more and have those one-on-one conversations to ensure that everything is working correctly and you understand where you're sending traffic and why it's performing the way it is.
And when we talk about different structures, I think a question that you might ask us is, well, don't they just all get picked up by businesses or call centers? And different verticals do have different structures on the back end. And I often will break it out into sort of two big categories. We have more of our traditional offers that might be set up where the buyers on the back end have a call center. They've got 40 agents. They're answering the phones. They're taking calls from anywhere across the U.S. because they know they can service that and then send them off to their clients, or their in-house team can provide that product or service, whatever it might be. It's fairly straightforward. You have agents, they're in a call center, their job is to answer the phone, that's what they do. And the opposite side is that a lot of these newer verticals that we're able to offer campaigns and things like pool repair or podiatrists or these really, really niche offers, which albeit are very, very cool and attractive for publishers because they are so niche, they're set up differently in the sense that the majority of those actually route to local businesses or to local small and medium-sized businesses, which means instead of having a call center on the back end who is targeted and managed and watching people pick up those phones, you might be calling Joe the plumber, you could be calling Dr. Gary the podiatrist, and Dr. Gary might be on a phone call. He might be in a meeting. His hours may have changed. We are dealing with literally thousands of local businesses on that front. So it's not as predictable in terms of coverage being all across the US, or that these people are always going to pick up the calls. And we're doing everything we can to try to do that. But just the reality of working with thousands of people picking up calls as opposed to a specific call center is a really big factor that you need to be aware of when you're generating calls. So that's something right off the gate I would say, talk to your partner success team, talk to your manager, talk to the group here at RingPartner, and we can hopefully provide you what to expect so that when you're sending those calls, you know what your expectation level should be in terms of coverage, in terms of who's picking up those calls.
Yeah, I fully agree, Chris. And another piece I wanted to pop in there was really when you're picking campaigns, I think it's very important to really understand the campaign. Like plumbing, do you have a friend that does plumbing? Do you know the ins and outs of the vertical? Make sure that you have a good grasp on everything that you have control on, because there are things in a campaign that myself, Chris, or anyone on the team don't have control of, and that's sort of the way the campaign can go ups and downs. So really hone in on the vertical, know it in and out. Big suggestion there.
Definitely, and I think that's like any business, and I have to make sure you're looking at this from a business perspective. Know your business, and you can't just expect to start running something that you really know nothing about. You don't know what those keywords are. You don't know what those angles are to get the cheaper traffic. So campaign fundamentals outside of that, Taylor, we've got fixed rate campaigns, we've got variable rate campaigns. What's the difference?
So basically, fixed rate campaign is a set rate that you are paid for all calls that go over the duration. It doesn't matter on what area that call will hit. As long as it hits the required duration, you're going to get paid that fixed rate. Variable rate, similar, but depending on what buyer takes the call or what area that call might be hitting, or what time of day you've driven that call, the rate may vary. I always suggest to people to actually split test. If there is a fixed rate, split test with the variable. You don't know which campaign will actually perform better until you do. Don't leave anything on the table with a what if, or I don't think that's going to work, so I'm not going to try. You will not be successful that way.
So the pros and the cons, I guess the thing you should be aware of is quite often fixed rate campaigns, they may pay out a little bit less because you're added security and you're added the knowledge of knowing that you are going to make this much if the call goes over this duration. Variable rate, that can fluctuate. You might get paid lower on some, but there's other ones that might pay substantially higher depending on the time of day, depending on the geo. It really helps us cater more to what our buyers are specifically looking for, and then rewards you if you're able to get that good traffic in the good areas that they really want. So I think there's a ton of opportunity there. Chat to your team again to figure out what's best for you. And I think what you said too, split testing is always a good idea.
Totally, and that rolls into our next point is EPC, and that's something we need to educate everyone on, and something that you should know as a publisher, how important EPCs are. If you don't know how to calculate your EPC, very simple, you take the amount of calls that you've sent and the earnings, and you divide the two, and that is essentially your earnings per call. Very key in terms of running campaigns with us, and one metric we constantly are looking at.
And the reason that is so important is I think a lot of publishers, when they're starting out, will look at campaign payouts and they're going to go, wow, I can make $75 or I can make $150 if I run this one campaign. That's great. But we're here to talk about how to convert your campaigns and conversions. And EPC is the most direct correlation to converting calls that I can think of, because you might make $150 on a payout, but what if you send 100 calls through and 0 convert? That $150 payout doesn't mean a whole lot. Whereas perhaps if you are running a campaign for a different vertical that maybe pays out $10 and you're converting 1 out of every 3 calls that goes through, or 1 out of every 2 calls that goes through, your EPC is going to be that much higher, because regardless, you're paying for the traffic unless you're just doing organic that's coming through the door to these campaigns. The more of those you can convert, the better off you're going to be. So it's not all about what the listed payout is. You need to look at what your overall earnings per call are that you're generating for a campaign. That is the magic ticker. And quite often people might say, well, I might be able to get $5 higher on this other network or an exchange, or running it through a different campaign, we're happy to take a look at that. But in the end, the actual payout isn't the deciding factor. It's how much you're actually making and how many of those calls we can help you convert. That's what we really care about.
Yeah, agreed. Just go back to the bigger picture here. Your lifespan of a campaign, with what Chris just explained, was, 100 calls sent, 1 paid, probably not a really healthy lifespan. But you're converting at 40 to 50% on a lower payout campaign, the lifespan is going to be much longer. And that's what we're all here for, is a long-lasting business, not a get-rich-quick scheme, because that is not what affiliate marketing is all about.
So the next step that we like to talk about when we're talking about how to improve your conversions, and something that we really ask for as much transparency as we can into receiving from you as a publisher, is insight into your creative. So all campaigns, we have to approve creatives, and you know that already. But helping us understand the flow of how that user is, in the end, making that phone call is going to help us actually audit and optimize your campaign a lot more. And we talk a lot about, what is your value proposition? What is that user experience like for a customer? And that's something that I think all publishers should take a step back and relook at, because if you have ad text that's saying, hey, get your septic tank cleaned today, and then you're driving them to a landing page that is, hey, do you need a plumber, blah, 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 we do X, Y, and Z, and then they hit an IVR that says, hey, this is a, plumbing repair, blah, blah, blah experience. If it's not continuous and if it's not seamless, it can be a bit of a tricky user experience for the actual person who's going through that flow. We want to make it as seamless as you can and as consistent as you can. And by allowing us to kind of look into your creative, into your user flow, that's going to help your conversions. And we've seen it time and time again, internally, externally, with partners. If you can have a seamless user experience from the time they decide to search for something that they need to the ultimate period of when they're actually making the call and getting connected with a business that hopefully provides them with that proper service, your conversion rates are going to go up. If it's choppy, if it's interrupted, if you're talking about just septic at one time and then you're talking about plumbing and then maybe you're talking about hot water tank leaks, they're going to be a little bit confused and they're not going to trust the experience as much.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're hitting on a really important piece, Chris, is call flow. Your call flow needs to be smooth. Don't leave the ball in the caller's court in terms of a payout. Try and eliminate any possibility, of a paid call not being paid because of a poor call flow. And that really kind of goes back to the different sources that people use. If it's a paid ad, probably you need to understand that your ad text is your landing page. Not many people in terms of callers are going to be hitting that landing page. If it's SEO, you're going to be driving a lot of those calls with your content. So make sure the content very self-explanatory, very clear, so you can almost pre-qualify the caller before they pick up the call.
And I think that comes into part design here as well, which we talk about a lot, because it's part of that user experience, and it's part about funneling that customer into the proper channel that you want them to make an action. You want them to take an action, and you want them to fit into a certain bucket, which is you want them perhaps to talk to a plumber, or you want them to purchase auto insurance, whatever it happens to be. Having a customer make a call isn't the be-all and end-all, because you need to make sure that that experience they have coming through is sort of setting them up to understand that, oh, I actually want you to purchase new auto insurance. That's what it is. We don't want you just to call a phone number for the sake of trying to have a customer service question or talk about an existing one trying to connect to their current auto insurance provider. And quite often that's where a disconnect may occur with conversions, is maybe you're getting these calls coming through, but they're not actually making the key press you want, or they're not ending up purchasing or staying on the phone long enough because it's not the product or service that they thought they were looking for. So the more you can design your creatives and your user experience to set up that customer so that when they're making the call, they know what they're getting connected to and they know what that action is you want them to take, that's where you're going to see conversions. If it's too generic and if you're only focused on trying to make that customer call, you're going to get people that call in or that are going, I don't know exactly what you're doing, but I need some sort of a dentist. Oh, you don't do that? Oh, okay, never mind. And they're not going to stay on, and that call's not going to convert. You really need to make the user experience your top priority when building out your creatives and your flow. Types of different traffic, and we know everybody's working with different types of traffic out there, and we have different people in-house that are going to be experts at different areas. So, utilize the team here again, and I can't emphasize that enough.
Yeah, absolutely. So really look at a campaign before you apply and really think about does my method of sending calls work with this vertical? There's a lot of times people who are doing SEO and they try running something like locksmith, plumbing, towing. It is good. The results, I would say, on paid search would be better on the network because it's an immediate action. People need that service right away. They don't need to spend time looking through a landing page on how someone's going to help them with a flooded basement. But when it's something like a walk-in tub or a stair lift or legal or rehab, video, SEO, people who probably need a little more content or direction on what they're calling about, that's going to work probably much better. So definitely reach out to myself, Henry, or Marie, or anyone on the team and kind of ask, hey, what's this campaign doing? Would my source make sense? We do have that information and we can share as much as we can with you.
And I think that way, if you know what to expect in terms of conversions, that's probably very helpful from your side as a publisher. If you need to know that, you know, we're seeing really good success with people using paid search on this type of campaign. Click-to-call ads make sense because it's a locksmith. People don't want to be on a landing page. They just want somebody to come and help them get in their car. They're going to click to call immediately. Done. Perfect. That's good insight to have. And we can hopefully provide that to you on a number of these different promo types. And then we can also provide you, you know, with some insight into, you know, overall, how is that working on our exchange and what are we seeing success in? But a big piece to that is, you know, different types of promo types are going to have different type of quality that's going to be generated for us as well. And knowing that information is power to you. So I know I feel like a broken record when I keep saying, chat to us about your promo types, chat to us about your creatives, chat to us about your calls that aren't converting or about opportunities that you're wanting to do. And I say it over and over just because it is so personal. Very, very rarely are people doing the exact same thing, and that's why we really have to try to customize our advice to you based on what you're doing, what your experience is, and what you want to achieve. We have a number of partners who they want to do this in the free time. They have a few hours at night, and this is, you know, a bit of a side hustle for them. And we have a lot of publishers who this is their full-time gig, and this is what they do day in and day out. And depending on what your commitment is and your resources are, we can kind of tailor different advice to you as well. So call reporting is probably the most important part of this whole webinar, and it's the area that we're going to ideally try to get you a ton of value in, because you actually have tools to know a lot of what's going on without even having to chat to us, although I want you to. But I think quite often people don't realize that there is a lot of insight they can get from just their basic call reporting that we provide via Invoca, which is our third-party tracking solution.
Absolutely. There's tons of tools in Invoca to use. You can go into reporting, you know, pick what you want to see, why a call ended, the key presses. There's a lot of data at your disposal through Invoca to educate yourself on what's happening. You know, reach out to myself, you know, if you see a lot of key presses that aren't paying out, probably a good reason why they're not paying out, and definitely reach out to us for that. Key presses is a very big and key piece with any offer. Certain key presses will pay, some will not, and those are set up to actually help your quality. If we don't have certain key presses to filter out some of these callers, we're going to get negative feedback from the buyer. There's something to always remember is this is a group effort. You know, you're the publisher who's sending the calls to us, and then we also have the buyers receiving those calls, and if it doesn't work on both sides, the campaign will not work.
And so I think if you look at this, like, let's take a test scenario. Let's assume you guys are out there sending a bunch of calls. You've had a ton of calls go through and they're not converting. Let's get to kind of the meat and the potatoes here. The first step that we're going to do, even if you chat to us, is exactly what we're about to suggest now. Log into your account, head over to Invoca for your call reporting, and pull up your reporting for your campaign. Pick a specific date range, and it might be 7 days, it might be the last day. It depends what type of traffic you're generating. If you're sending, 10, 15 calls, honestly, that's not a lot of data to actually be able to even analyze, so you need to have sufficient enough data to begin with. So pick a date range that's acceptable to give you that data. And then pull up a call reporting. On the right-hand top side, you're going to have access to a wheel that's going to allow you to pull up all sorts of different options to see from, the geo, from the, is it a repeat caller, from the time of day, all of that sort of stuff, which is going to give you more insight to know why these calls aren't converting. So let's say you see 100 calls have gone through and none of them have converted. The first thing I'm going to ask you to do is to check out the key presses that the customer has made. And the only reason that's going to even make sense to you is if you understand what the IVR is that the customer is going through. So I'd also go back to the campaign page that you're running. Let's say it's auto insurance, and use that test call function on the campaign. You can do a test call, and it won't attribute any money to the campaign or to you getting paid. where you can then experience what the customer is experiencing. You can hear the IVR. You can hear, hey, thanks, you're obviously interested in buying auto insurance. Please press 1 if you already have insurance and you'd like to get a new quote. Please press 2 if you don't. Please press 3 for anything customer service related. Great. Now head back to your reporting and take a look at the key presses they're making. Is there no key presses at all? If that's the case, they're hearing that message and they might be saying, man, I don't want anything to do with auto insurance. This isn't the right place for me. They're hanging up. Maybe you see a whole ton of press 3s. Well, that means you're, for some reason, targeting a lot of customer service calls. So again, not something that we like. So you need to change the user experience as they're getting to make that call so that ultimately they understand they're calling to get a new auto insurance quote. That's the first place I'd look at. The next one, geos.
Yeah, geos very important. Familiarizing yourself with the campaign, geos is very key. Without understanding that, you can tend to be a little bit lost if some calls aren't paying out. Lots of stuff to actually pay attention, and then that kind of rolls into the most important one, I think, repeat callers.
And I know you get a ton of questions on this, and just quickly to touch on the geo thing too, not all campaigns are open everywhere. So no. It seems basic, but do check and see, did a call come in from somewhere that isn't a permitted area? Obviously that makes sense with it. Repeat callers is the big one you hear a ton about. And for most campaigns, repeat callers will not be paid out within 30 days if they call back within a 30-day period. So quite often you'll say, hey, this is somebody, they made the right key press, they're in the geographic region, I called within the right hours. That's right, but they also called a week ago and you got paid for that one. Or they called, 17 days ago. You don't get paid on repeat callers, so take a look at that. Once the 30-day threshold is removed, and again, that's for most campaigns, then you will. And then this is, again, all available in the call reporting. The IVR I touched on a little bit. Understand that IVR, know what it's saying, know what it's asking, so you can have an idea of, what is it that we're really looking for these customers? Is that campaign looking for the key presses that your clients are making? Call duration and length, really clear one, really easy. Did it go over the duration? What is the duration? If it doesn't clearly state it, reach out to the team, ask us, we can tell you. If all the calls are lasting 34 seconds or 2 seconds, or you see a trend in that, that's telling us something. And we might not always know exactly what it's telling us, but it is telling us that there's an experience that's taking place where they're either hearing the message and they're just staying on long enough or they're not staying on long enough. Ultimately, good call lengths and good durations generally means good quality. So we are looking to get those longer durations. And if you see trends or consistencies with anything other than that, that's some data that we can really dig into.
Yeah, one thing I wanted to check, actually just touch on with the call duration and length, is when you're looking at reporting, really understand that total duration and connected duration are very, very different. Total duration is the second the caller has dialed the phone number and hit the IVR, and also including the time that they talk to the agent. That is your total duration. Connected duration is what we pay off of, and that is when the caller has actually hit the agent themselves. So I have a lot of people sending me, reports of, a page of calls that they think should be paid, but in fact, they're actually looking at the wrong duration. So just remember, total duration is not what we pay off of. Connected duration is the key.
And you have access, again, to all of these columns in your reporting, so use them, look at them, know them, and do this sort of tier 1 check yourself. It definitely helps add a little bit of clarity so you can start optimizing before even speaking to us. Campaign hours, again, a fairly obvious one, but it happens where we'll look at things and make sure you got the time code set up correctly in the reporting, because a lot of people, it might default to UTC and maybe you're on EST. See what the campaign's hours are and make sure that that call came in within a time frame, obviously, that are paid. One thing we do get from a lot of people as well is potentially like, hey, we heard this call, it went through, it got sent to a buyer, I know it was outside of the hours, but it sounded like it's still a really good call and I didn't get paid. The reality is the buyers that we work with are only willing to pay for a campaign for specific hours, specific times. Sometimes they're 24/7, but whatever the campaign description tells you on, those are the rules you have to play by in order to get paid for the calls. That's what we get paid on, and that's what the advertiser has said, hey, I'm willing to buy traffic between these times from these geos. Know it, live it, breathe it. And again, if you think there's an opportunity outside of that, talk to us, and then we'll go back and we'll pitch, and we'll say, hey, we've got somebody, they're interested in sending stuff outside of those. Can we make a side deal? Can we do something to, hopefully get you that good traffic as well? Always a conversation you're willing to have.
Oh, yeah.
So last piece here, touching on this, is just testing, optimizing, trying different things. Don't be scared to try different things, and don't be scared to talk to us about it. I think as you go through this reporting, you're going to get a lot of insight. You're going to see the key presses. You're going to see the different hours. You're going to see the geos that your calls are coming into, and you're going to start to see trends with your traffic. As once you get more data coming through the door, it's a lot easier to see who these customers are and what it is, the experience that they're going through, and why they're making the actions that they make. So you can adjust. You can have 2 different landers. You can have different promo numbers setting up for these different advertisements. A lot of people use single promo numbers for all of their different ads. You can make multiple ones. Test it out. Try a different experience. Use a custom call promotion. Once you can kind of see that you're getting a ton of customer service calls, try to narrow down where are those coming from. Are they all coming from one creative or from one ad or from one landing page? Use different promo numbers on different sites so that you can ultimately track that. It's a really great feature for you to be able to kind of know what is sending me good stuff and what's sending me the stuff that I want to weed out.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, referring back to Invoca, you have these tools in there that you can actually apply for. One is the ring pools, which would definitely help with seeing, what ad worked there. Maybe moving the image down a little bit really helped, and they'll give you those individual promo numbers so you can trace back where that call came from. Again, call promotions, Chris just briefly touched on. Really big opportunity with call promotions. Look into it, apply for it in Invoca. We can approve you for it, and really do that A/B testing, like we mentioned, even with the fixed rate and variable rate campaigns. Talking to our internal team here, really digging into your reports, what keywords are working. Some people just target by zip, but maybe you should be targeting by city and removing the poor converting zips. Maybe that's easier for you. Do not pigeonhole yourself into trying one thing all the time.
And small changes can make a really big impact. One trick I'll tell you is we've had publishers in the past put promo numbers or put their phone numbers or their call to actions right next to perhaps a box, which is the help box or the, hey, contact support, or do you need help? And quite often that might infer to people that, oh, this is just a general support helpline, I'll give that a call. They move the phone number up 2 inches onto the center of the page, which is call for service, or next to a box that's actually talking about the service, and the quality of the callers drastically increases because people aren't thinking that they're calling just for general support, they're actually calling to make an action. So it seems small and it seems sort of nitpicky, but a lot of these sort of simple design features can really make changes in that sense. So
there we go. Winding it down here, guys. Like as you can see, special offer, 15-minute campaign audit. Book it now. I believe we'll have a link available for everybody.
Yeah, I think you can probably click on it, and if not, certainly do reach out to us, because this is the part we've been chatting about a lot with throughout the webinar and to the team. It's so personalized.
Totally.
Taylor works with some of our largest publishers on the exchange, and he does that by working one-on-one with them, understanding their traffic, understanding who they are and what their business needs are. So do take advantage of this. Book a 15-minute campaign audit. Let's take a look at your traffic. Let's take a look at what you sent, and let's walk through these tools. We can do a screen share. We can see what you're seeing. We can show you what we're showing on our side, and we can kind of walk you through our thought process. And then, again, there's not always a golden key. It's not always a guarantee that we can say this is exactly what's happening with the user experience, but we can work with multiplicity of indicators that we're receiving when we audit your campaign and we look at your data to hopefully help you do better. So I really implore you, take this opportunity, book the time. There's not a lot of other groups out there that are so invested in you as a partner, and we really want to do that. So we're here as a resource for you. If you don't want to use us for that, that's no worries at all. We're certainly here whenever you do. But if you got somebody who's willing to work on your business for you, take advantage of it, I say.
Absolutely. So we'll be unfortunately ending this webinar. Want to thank everyone coming out to listen. I believe a lot of the CallZoo members are listening right now. Shout out to Chris Winters and William for really spearheading that group and pointing them in the right direction. So till next time, guys, happy calling.